All right, we're into Facts, guys, a new series where we're going to give it to you straight. We're hoping to hit hard answers to hard questions with you guys and not sugarcoat it for you guys, but just deliver it straight so you guys know what the Bible has to say about this, what God has to say about these things, and we're really excited about this series because we know that's what you guys want. And so we're talking facts, and, you know, I'm kind of a guy who embraces fluff, like when I'm communicating, okay? So a little bit of a politician here, where I can just talk around things. I add a lot of fluff in. There's two people in my life that shoot the facts straight to me, okay, more than anyone else. My wife, Rose, and my son, Conrad, my 8-year-old son. And so I'll give you an example. He inherited this trait from Rose, and I love it because they keep me honest. And the other day, we're looking at pictures of me in college. Conrad comes over, and he sees a picture of me in college, and I was like, yeah, Conrad, what do you think? He goes, wow, Dad, you were way slimmer back then. I was like, whoa, okay, all right. Dude, I'm going to work out. I'm going to get my life together, okay? I'm going to pull this together. But that's Conrad in a nutshell. Conrad's an awesome guy. And the thing you got to know about Conrad is that anytime he's excited about something, he really can't contain it. And so whenever he's excited about something, his body just gets involved with whatever he's excited about. So case in point, it's our last flag football game of the season. Okay, we've gotten waxed so far up throughout the season. We've lost by like 60 points every single game. But in this game, we're up by a touchdown. Conrad gets to go in at quarterback for the very first time. And he gets the ball. He says, hike. And, you know, most people, they drop back, you know, and they just kind of, you know, do their progression, stuff like that. Conrad is actually hopping like this with the ball, right? He's hopping around the field. He dishes out a strike. They get a touchdown, actually, which was amazing. He was excited. But here's the thing about Conrad. Like, if he's excited, you just see it. Like, you know he's excited about it. And so there was this one event that happened a couple years ago where he was more excited than just about anything else in life. So this movie came out, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and for him it was everything. And so you guys might have seen this off and on. Big deal for kids, made a ton of money, but this movie comes out and it's all he can think about. All he can think about is this movie, what it's going to be like. And there's specifically like one thing that he absolutely has to see in this movie, and it's when Mario punches Bowser in the face. That's what he wanted to see. He's like, Dad, do you think we'll get to see that? I'm like, man, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. So the time rolls around. We go to the movie theater, and we're at Elcon over there. And there's like 100 people in the theater, and we roll in, and something's off about Conrad. He doesn't look excited. He's just kind of like looks tense. And so he doesn't look himself. I thought he was excited about the movie. It's me, him, his little sisters. And so we start watching the movie. His little sisters have no idea what's going on the screen. They don't know who Super Mario is. But Conrad's just sitting there the whole time, and he's just like this, tense. And I'm like, man, what's going on? I thought he'd be excited about this. So we go throughout the movie, nothing. Like if Conrad was going to be excited about it, he'd be saying something, doing something, nothing. And so we get to the fatal scene, right? The scene where Mario is battling Bowser, and you won't believe it. We're in the front row of the theater. Mario punches Bowser straight in the face, and Conrad, who's sitting there like this in the front row of the theater, just goes uncontrollably, like it just totally gets released. Like he's so excited about the scene that he can't control himself. I'm like, Conrad, calm down, like calm down. He's like, I can't, you know, like he's so excited about what he just saw on the screen. He can't control it, right? It was one of those amazing times as a dad where you're like, man, did not see this coming. Here's the question we're going to wrestle with tonight. The thing that we're going to look at together, the thing that we want to shoot you guys straight on. How much do you want to see God in life? How much do you want to see him? Like, how much do you actually want to know God, see him move in your life? How much do you want to see him interact with things in your life? That's a question we want to answer tonight. My guess is most of you guys want to see God move in your life. In different areas of your life, maybe it's your personal life. You're hoping that you see God transform something in your personal life, something that has really been bothering you for years that you're hoping, man, I hope I see God transform this thing in my life. Maybe it's in your spheres of influence, like the people that you're trying to influence. You're hoping to see God challenge people, grow people in that place, but maybe it seems a little distant to you. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's at home with your family. But if I was going to bank on it, if I was going to guess, I would guess every single person in this room wants to see God move in their life. So here's the question. why don't we always see God move in our life? Why is it so hard sometimes to sense what God is doing or to see him do the things that we want him to do? Is there a difference between the people that see God actually do things in their life and the people who don't? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Here's what I want you to discuss with the people around you. What are some things you want to see God do this semester? Go ahead and talk to the people around you. All right, my hope for everybody in this room is that you want to see God do some big things in your life this semester. That you actually want to see him move, that you want to see him interact with your life, that you see him, that you know him, that you get to experience him. And so we go back to the question, who are the people that actually get to see God move in their life? Do they have to follow some secret formula? Is there something they have to do repetitively to get to see God in their life? Well, the great thing about the Bible is it actually makes it very clear who sees God move. And when I found this out, I was actually surprised just how straightforward it is. Who are the people that actually get to see God move in their life? And it comes from a verse that Jesus is talking to this group of people. It's kind of a group of people like this, and he's teaching them life lessons. He's helping them grow in life. But then he starts talking about the type of people who actually see God move in their life. And it's Matthew 5:8, and it's this really simple verse, and this is what it says right here. Jesus is talking to these people, and he says, these are the people that see God. He said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Simple. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. You know, you'd think it was way more complex than this. There was a lot of things to follow, but this is what Jesus said. He says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Now, what does it mean to be pure in heart? That's the thing we got to figure out if we're going to figure out how we can be people that see God move in our lives. And I think the guy who sums this up the best that I found is a guy named Lloyd Jones. He says this. He said, blessed are those who are pure, not only on the surface, but in the center of their being and at the source of every activity. So what does this verse mean, to be pure in heart? What it means is that not only are we clean on the outside, but we're clean on the inside as well. I like to think of it like this. In Tucson, if you have your car parked out on the road, the sun's pretty tough on your car. So we'll get our car washed often. We go to Mr. Car Wash, and so we'll go through the car wash, and rightfully so. We pay for the top-notch car wash, right? It's $30. It's a total waste of money, but it convinces me that it's going to protect my car. And so we'll go to the car wash often. The outside of the car is often looking good. If you saw us pull up, you'd be like, man, their car looks pretty good. Okay, it's a minivan. Okay, it's not that impressive, but it looks good. Now, the trick is if you open the door, it's a completely different story. So who in here is someone who's spotless with my car, right? No trash, nothing. If people leave trash in your car, it's an offensive thing, right? That's you. Okay, so I get that. I understand that. I am not that way. The Welchans are not that way. And in fact, if you open the door of our car, you're going to see it's essentially a trash can. It's terrible. You open the car, and there's trash on the floor. I mean, there's old coffee cups everywhere. There's stuff cemented on the ground. You look at it, and you're like, man, this thing is disgusting, right? And so we're good at a lot of things. That's not what we're very good at, but it makes the point, okay? What we're talking about here with being pure in heart is that, when God's looking at us, and he's thinking through, who am I going to reveal myself to? He's thinking, I'm going to reveal myself to those who are pure of heart. Not just clean on the outside, not just doing the right things, not just, cutting the minimum on our performance and the things that we do, but actually doing the things that are right on the inside too, having the right attitudes, having the right heart, having the right thoughts. It's a high standard, right? It's a high bar. And so the question is, how does someone actually obtain a pure heart? Who can actually do that? And there's two things we got to know if we're going to have a pure heart that we got to understand before we start to tackle this idea of seeing God in our life. There's two things that happen for someone who obtains this pure heart, and it's this. God has to create it in you. That's the first point. If you're going to have a pure heart, God has to create a pure heart in you. It's kind of a paradox. It's something that God does in your life. In fact, there's a verse, Psalm 51:10, it says this. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. What that's saying is that, man, if we pray for God to show us what our sin is, to show us the things in our life, he'll do it. He'll show us the things, but he has to create it inside of us. We can't always just create this ourselves. But the other side of that, the flip side of having a pure heart is this. We obtain a pure heart by God creating it in us, and then we also obtain a pure heart by striving for this thing called holiness. Striving for holiness. There's another verse in here. It says, James 4:8, it says, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. And so what this is saying is that in order for us to have pure hearts, God has to actually create this in us. But then there's this responsibility that we have to take on to create a pure heart in ourselves as well. And so I like to think of it like this. I'm married into a farming family. Anybody like from a farming background or anything like that? Okay, a couple of you guys. Here's the thing. I can talk about like the bare surface level understanding of farming, but I actually know nothing. But I know this. My father-in-law, he's a farmer, but so what they do is they go out and like they'll plant the seeds, they'll water it, they'll put all the minerals over the seeds. Man, they'll help these things grow. But at the end of the day, they have to trust that they're going to grow themselves, right? And so when we're thinking about purity of heart and obtaining this purity of heart, it's something that God has to create in us. And it's also something we strive for through pursuing holiness. Pursuing holiness is how we obtain a pure heart, how we get to see God. That's the responsibility we play in this equation. And tonight, what I want to do is I want to walk you guys through 4 ways that you can obtain a pure heart through striving for holiness. 4 ways to pursue holiness while you're pursuing God this semester. And the first way that we pursue holiness this semester is that we ask God. We ask God to give us holiness. There's a dangerous prayer in the Bible. It's Psalm 139:23, and this is what it says. It says this, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. This is described as one of the most dangerous prayers in the Bible because when you pray this verse, what you're doing is you're inviting God to search out your heart, man, to know you at the deepest part of you and to reveal to you the things that you're blind to. And we need this, right? I remember a time in my life where someone pointed out something in my life that I really couldn't see. And so, I speak a lot, so I go different places to speak. And I was always going to speak with my friend Dave. And so something that I had been practicing on, something that I've been working hard on was power stances. You guys ever heard of these before? Okay, anybody ever done a power stance in here? You don't want to raise your hands, yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple tricks. Like if you want to show people power while you're on stage, like I'll just give you guys a couple tips. One thing you do, like the first thing you get on stage is you move something. So like you come up here, boom, move this, right? Instant authority. People are like, oh, that guy moves something. He must have authority, right? You can know nothing about what you're talking about, but if you move something, people are like, gosh, that guy, authority, straight up. There's another thing you do, and that these people talk about, and I was just experimenting with this, it's power stances. And so power stances, it's like, you want to project authority, right? You want to be open with your body language. So a classic power stance is like this, right? Okay? So I'm obviously not doing that anymore, and there's a good reason for that. This one time I was speaking to this group of guys, and I went in, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to project authority and power. So first thing I do, I get up there, I move something real quick, right? Guys are blown away. I'm like totally blown away. And then I am like, okay, now step 2, power stance. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just doing this, right? And I'm feeling really good. And so I'm with my buddy Dave. He's a guy that I speak with a lot. And I'm like, man, I crushed this. Like, I dominated this talk. Like, there's nothing I could have done better. And I get to the end, and, I was kind of mentoring Dave and speaking. I was, like, walking away. I was like, hey, Dave, why don't you give me some, like, feedback on how I did? How was it, man? Was it pretty good? And he looked confused. And I was like, man, do you have something you want to tell me? He goes, Jake, was that like a new thing you were practicing up there, that power stance? And I was like, yeah, it was. He goes, and he's like searching for the words to say. He goes, you're not fat, but you really looked like it up there. And here's what I didn't know. Like the whole talk, while I'm doing this power stance, I'm also just projecting the belly out there as far as I can, right? And I'm sitting there going, I'm crushing it, but the whole time I'm just like totally sticking out the belly. Dave's going, please stop. Like, oh, this is terrible, How do we pursue holiness? We ask God to reveal to us the things that we can't see. There's so many areas of our life that we think we're good on. We think we're crushing. We think we're dominating in. Yet if we ask God to reveal to us the areas we need to grow in, he's always going to do it because we're blind to those things. We can't see them. The first way we pursue holiness is we ask God. The second way we pursue holiness so that we can see God is we exhort others and we're quick to repent. Okay, so that's kind of a mouthful there, but we exhort others and we're quick to repent. There's a verse in the Bible I love on this, Hebrews 3:12-13, and it says this: "Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. But exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." And so this verse is trying to help us figure out how to interact with other people. And here's one of the things it's challenging us to do. It's challenging us to do this thing called exhorting other people. And basically what it's saying is, hey, you should care enough about other people in your life that you're willing to point out those things, kind of like Dave was with me. You're willing to exhort them on areas they should grow in. Now, even saying that, it feels wrong in our society, right? It feels wrong to challenge people on the way they're living their life and to push them towards a better life, because we live individualistic lives where it's like, really, you can't challenge people on these things. But that's what the Bible's saying, is we should care enough about the people in our lives that we're willing to exhort them and challenge them on the areas of their life. Why? Why should we exhort the people in our life? Well, that verse is really clear. What it talks about is that if we don't exhort one another, we might be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. What does that mean? To be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Well, basically what it means is that, man, the more we sin, the more we engage in sinful activity, the more our heart gets hardened to those things. The more we become calloused to those things in our life. I like thinking of it like this. In Arizona, it's dry. So it's dry all the time. And, I've got a bunch of little kids. And, in our backyard, I'm constantly finding stuff that's just dried out. Well, one day, my youngest daughter, Bonnie, she's 2. She's like this big. She's crazy. And she has a banana outside, and she just leaves it on our porch, right? And so, over time, my kids step on it, over a couple days. It's bad. But then what happens to that banana is it just becomes essentially concrete. I can't move it. I'm trying to, chip it off my porch, and I can't do it, right? Over time, it just hardens, right? It becomes so strong in this Arizona dryness. That's what this verse is saying. I mean, the longer that we hold on to sin, the longer we're not challenged in that sin, the more our heart gets hardened to that sin. So we need other people to challenge us. We need people to enter our lives and point out the sin in our lives so that we can pursue God and pursue this thing called holiness, so that we can see God move in our lives. So what's the third way we grow in holiness? The third way we grow in holiness is we learn to think. We learn to think. This is an important skill and one that's in less and less supply these days. There's this famous quote, and people actually attribute it to Thomas Edison. It's a great quote. And basically what it says is 5% of people think. 5% of people think they think. 90% of people would rather die than think. And the idea behind this quote is that, man, this is a skill that we have to engage. We have to learn to think about our lives. And specifically, we've got to learn to think about 2 different areas of our lives if we're going to grow in holiness. The first area we have to think about if we're going to get to see God move in our life is we have to think about what we take into our lives. We got to think about the things we take into our minds, our lives, and all the above. Ephesians 5:3 says this: "But among you there must not even be a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's people." In this verse, that's a high standard, right? But we're in the Facts series, and this is what the Bible actually says. Among you there must not even be a hint of impurity, a hint of sin. It's a high standard. And basically what this verse is challenging us to do is to think about the things we take into our lives. Different areas we can consider. Where are there hints of impurity in our lives? We all have them. I'm not above it. It's not something that I've grown out of, but there's so many areas where we can just settle for little bits of impurity in our lives that take us away from God. Maybe it's substances. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's how we interact with other people. Maybe it's the music we listen to. Maybe it's what we watch. We have high standards for ourselves. I know you guys have high standards for yourself in so many areas of our lives, but where are we letting ourselves settle? Where are we allowing ourselves to have a hint of impurity in our lives? Like, we look at this and we're like, man, that is a crazy standard that God would have. That seems totally unrealistic for God to hold people to that standard. And basically, the reason God holds us to that standard is because he wants us to be leaders. He wants us to be people who engage other people and help them grow as well. I mean, when you think about leadership, I think about this graphic right here, and it actually is really telling about leadership. Man, the thing I know about StuMo people is that you guys want to lead. You want to be people who lead other people, engage other people, and you guys are doing it all over campus. But here's the thing you got to know about leadership. Man, the higher you go up in leadership, the less rights you actually have. And that's what God is saying. Hey, if you're going to lead people towards me, man, if you're going to be people who see God and set the bar high for other people in that area, man, there can't be a hint of these things in our life if you want to see God. The second thing we have to think about is who we hang out with. Who do we hang out with? This is a really important one. And there's a verse in 1 Corinthians 15:33, and this is what it says. It says this, it says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." It's straightforward, right? We look at this verse, and we know that's true. Man, we know the people we surround ourselves with, that's who we become in life. But this verse is saying, don't be deceived. Man, you're not just going to rise above your friend group and not be like them. You're going to be just like them. It's saying, hey, surround yourself with the right people. And when it's talking about company, it actually uses this word homilia and companionship. And what it's pointing to is actually like your closest friends, like your inner circle, like the people that you surround yourself with all the time. So when we think about who we're spending time with, if we're thinking about that and trying to get that right, there's really two different areas we have to think of in terms of the people we spend time with. There's the obvious people that we shouldn't spend all of our time with who are pushing us towards sin, right? We can think we know who those people are. We know who the people that are pushing us towards the things we shouldn't do. I remember my freshman year, there's this guy in my life, and I won't use his real name, but I'll just say Mark, right? And Mark, every time we were together, man, he was pushing me closer and closer to the things that I shouldn't do. That's the obvious category of people we shouldn't be including in our inner circle. But then there's a not so obvious group that we should think about as well in terms of who are the closest people to us, who are our closest friends, who are the people we're surrounding ourselves with. And the non-obvious group is those who are not pushing us away from sin, right? Those who let us settle for the things we shouldn't do in life. The ones that while they may not be pushing us towards the bad things, they're just okay with us kind of doing whatever we want. This verse is very clear. It says, hey, we have to be careful about who we surround ourselves with. And you guys should be friends with tons of people on this campus, and you guys should be loving people who are different than you, people who are doing things that are far from God. You should be loving all of those people. But in terms of our closest friend group, man, our closest circle of people in our lives, man, we have to be so careful who those people are because we become just like them. And a question I like to ask myself, and this is the Facts series, and just to shoot you guys straight, the question I like to ask myself in this area is, am I this person? Because so often I am. I'm not the friend I need to be. I'm not the friend that pushes my friends towards the best. I let them settle, and I want to do better. And if we're going to see God, man, we got to be people who think about what we take into our minds, our lives, and also think about the people we surround ourselves with. What's the last thing we can do to pursue holiness in hopes of seeing God move in our life. The last thing I want to challenge you guys to do to pursue holiness, to see God move in your life, is to devote this semester to seeing God. Devote this semester to seeing God. I don't want you guys to leave anything on the table in terms of your relationship with God. I don't want to personally, but so often I do. Man, I want this to be a semester, especially as we're going through this fact series, especially as we're talking about these hard things and challenging you guys and shooting you guys straight. Man, I want you guys to devote this semester to seeing God move in your life, no matter what the cost, no matter what it costs you to see that happen. Don't leave money on the table. Don't leave anything left unturned. I think of Jeremiah 29:13 when I talk about this. It says this: "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart." And that verse is really clear. God's saying, hey, you will find me when you seek me with all of yourself. And the question is, how much are we willing to give God in pursuit of seeing him? I'm in this boat with you guys. Sometimes for me, it's 20%. Sometimes it's 50. Sometimes it's more. But I want to be someone who devotes myself to seeing God move in my life. Okay, I want you guys to discuss with the people around you which of these 4 ways to pursue holiness stuck out to you the most. Go ahead and discuss with the people around you. My hope for everybody in this room, especially as we're going through this series, is that you'll devote this semester to seeing God move in your life. And the way to see God move in your life is you pursue purity of heart. That's what we do. Here's the thing about purity of heart. It's not going to win you a trophy. Okay, they're probably not going to write a book about you. It's not going to get you 1 million followers. It won't put money in your bank account. People won't put you up front for having purity of heart. No one may know that you're even pursuing that in your life. The only thing you'll get if you devote this semester to purity of heart is that you'll get to see God. You'll get to see him move in your inner life, to challenge you, to make you a better person, to make you more like Jesus. You get to see him move in the people around you, man, using you to impact those people. You get to see him move throughout your career. You'll get to see him move in your family, and you'll get to see the other side of eternity, spending that time with God, knowing him. That's all the pure in heart receive. But it seems like a fair trade, doesn't it?